Welcome back to the 11th episode of the Dear Young Men podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how minimalism became popular and now overconsumption is at an all-time high, balancing your ambitions and being a father, and finally, getting wealthy is simple, but it does take quite a bit of sacrifice on Dear Young Men. We have a bunch of topics to get into today, so we're just going to dive right in. Unfortunately, no funny intro. They're dead, all right? All right, so I actually had an idea to make a funny intro about that Hawk Tua person, but I wanted to talk about it instead because I think it's such an interesting thing. She just blew up so quickly overnight in this really weird way, and even I heard about her, and I don't know about anything. So the fact that I know about her is it means that she's like mainstream, basically. So it's just, if you don't know, you're like the one person who doesn't know. It's just this girl. I'll play the clip here.
What's one move in bed that makes a man go crazy every time?
You gotta give him that Hawk Tua and spit on that thing. You get me?
So she got wildly famous for that clip right there. And so it's weird. Like my first opinion is, well, it's a little degrading in a way. Like obviously I don't want anybody, I'm very anti-porn. So I don't want anybody doing anything like that. But that's not what she's doing. She's just sort of like making a joke. And that's sort of how I took it. It's kind of a funny joke. Kind of don't care what you do in your bedroom with your spouse, your husband or your wife. Like I don't really care. It's really not up to me. I really couldn't care less. I am unable to care any less than I currently care. However that phrase is said. So I think like my first thought was, I don't know, that's kind of weird. But then I started thinking about it some more and I'm like, I don't know, it's kind of funny. Like it's also just funny and we're allowed to laugh at things. Of course, it got wildly political right away. And this is where I think the one part that is a little degrading is because she said this thing that is like very intimate. It's a very intimate thing to be doing, which you should only be doing with your husband or your wife. Or I guess your husband. The story only goes one way. So she got asked this question on a podcast, and it's basically like, would you do this to these people? And I felt like, to me, that's like the most degrading part of it is she's sort of getting treated like, I'm not saying she's being treated like an object, and I think like it doesn't seem to bother her that much. But like I know I personally would think, well, like I'm so much more than just that. That's not like that's such a minuscule part of what a person is. And so I don't know. I mean, you can see the podcast clip here.
I have a game that I want to play with you guys.
That makes me nervous.
It's not that scary, I promise. It's called Huck Tua or Nah. And you tell me if you want to Huck Tua on that thing or no.
Okay.
Donald Trump.
No, absolutely not.
No.
It's a no from me.
Okay.
So you can see it's like she's being forced to answer these questions like, would you do this to these men and to these other people? And I think that's like degrading to even ask her that question. Like I think she was saying a joke and just sort of like taking it to that next level of, like when she said it was sort of in a way almost fake because it wasn't about a person. It was just like, oh, the idea is, you do this thing, but now you're asking about specific people, specific men, and it kind of like puts her in a really awkward position. Like, would you do it to these people? Huh? Would you do that to these people? And I don't like that. I don't think people should be asking her that question. I think it's just a joke. She's also willing to take that sort of level of criticism and sort of that level of like a being able to be attacked because she is going on podcasts. She could just fly silently under the radar and people would forget about her in a week's time, but she's trying to make it her new thing. That's like she's trying to hit the jackpot and she's trying to cash in on it, which I think is cool. Like just go for it, I guess. But yeah, I just hope that I hope that it's like I hope she doesn't get treated poorly. I don't know. I think it should just be kind of weird because it's like sort of, it's not a degrading thing in a way, but I just don't want her to be like degraded by people. Well, would you do it to this guy or this guy or this guy? So anyways, that's my 2 cents about it. As dad of 2 girls, I would never want them to talk like that. And if they did talk like that, I would never want them to make that their career. But I kind of, in a way, I'm kind of rooting for the girl. It's like, why not? It's kind of funny. Who cares? Like, it's funny. Whatever. I mean, there are so many worse things in this world than that. So who cares? But then it was funny that it did get political, basically, right away. On that same podcast, she was asked if she would do it to Trump. And then everybody was like, this girl's a liberal. This girl's blah, 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 blah. This country, like, that stuff sucks. Like, who cares who she votes for one? And for two, like, she was just being funny. Like, it was just a joke. So stop. Oh, I need to know this person's political leanings. If I don't know who they voted for, then I can't trust them. She's an industry plant. People, we got to get outside more, right? Like, we got to go outside. We got to spend more time off the internet. The internet sucks, so get off of it. It could have been great. Could have been Library of Alexandria plus, to the power of 15. It's not, though. So get off the internet. Go outside. Cut your grass. Trim some weeds, whatever it is, whatever you got to do. Go for a run. Just get outside, because like this girl just made a little bit of a joke. It went crazy viral, and you care about her political leanings. Who cares? It's a joke. It's a meme. Okay. Anyways, I thought that was just kind of funny. Like, that's a cultural thing. There's another cultural thing that we will talk about later on, which is not quite as funny as that. So next I want to talk about minimalism and how it became so popular, and then seemingly, it feels like gradually over the last 2 years or 3 years, minimalism has just sort of gone away, and it's been replaced by what it was currently replaced by already, which is overconsumption. I have a bunch of unfortunate stats, figures, and stuff, but I want to talk about this stuff because I think it's so interesting, and because you can learn so much from other people's failings. That's what you need to do. So this podcast, I'll talk about the things that I messed up on in my past, but we got to look at what other people are and other mistakes that people are making. So the use of credit cards and credit card debt has been quickly on the rise over the past 25 years, peaking at over $1 trillion on nationwide credit card debt for the first time in history of the country. But why? Like, why do I think this is happening? Why is this happening? So you can see the chart here. It's, if you're just listening, back in 1999, it was at $500 billion of credit card debt, and it's slowly been rising. During the 2008 stock market crash, it actually went down, which is so interesting to me, because I think that there's a certain level of the less money you have available to you, the less you're willing to use a credit card, which is why I think I'm right with my theory about everything. But it almost peaks at $900 billion right in 2008. And then it drops steadily for a very long period of time until about 2012, 2013, where it sort of bottoms out at about $675 billion. And then it basically just rises again until you can see basically 2020, the first quarter of 2020, when it was starting to peak at $900 billion. And then it dropped very quickly down to under $800 billion during the COVID lockdowns when we're all forced inside of our homes. And now it's shot really dramatically back up, unlike we've ever seen in any 10-year period, 2-year period since 1999, and now it's up over $1.1 trillion of credit card debt. It's just a remarkable graph. It's a remarkable thing to look at, because it's $1 trillion of credit card debt. We're like a government with all this credit card debt. So why do I think this is happening? I think the biggest thing is that it's never been easier. In the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, getting a credit card has never been easier. Every single company seemingly has a credit card. Dick's Sporting Goods has a credit card. Best Buy has a credit card. Apple has a credit card. Every company has a credit card. Everybody's a bank now, basically, is what it seems like, or everybody's trying to sell you a credit card. So many of those store credit cards as well. You would be shocked at the interest rates. They're at the legal limit. I believe it's 26.99% APR is the legal federal law on how high you could charge interest rate. Every single store credit card is at that legal limit. I used to work at Golf Galaxy years and years ago, and they were under the Dick's Sporting Goods. So we were forced to push credit cards. I never did, and I always told people don't do it. I told them how high the APR was. I was a terrible salesman, but I knew a lot about golf, so that was good. But I always tell them, like, yeah, it's an option, and you don't have to pay today. Like, you technically, there's no interest for like 2 months or 3 months or something, but then the interest is like 26.99%, and that's a legal limit. So they're really punishing you. So I would explain this to people, and I had to be careful because if my manager heard me say that, I probably would have gotten fired. But so I mean, I don't know, like that I just felt so slimy about that. But they're so readily available, so readily accessible, and people have gone so stupid. I think that they're just dumb. Why are we putting all this money in credit cards? We know credit cards are bad. We know that 27% APR, that's a bad thing, because if you could get 20%, 27% like return on any investment that you ever invested, you would be the greatest investor to ever walk the planet. So why would you take it the other way? You would be the dumbest spender of money to ever exist on the planet. Next is, I believe people are so materialist now. I've talked about this ad nauseum on this podcast, and I will continue to talk about this. People have become very materialistic. We are just bodies now. We are not souls and bodies. We are just we're just atoms floating through space. Obviously, as a Christian, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. but we're just atoms floating through space. So this materialist worldview where we just look at things as the end all be all, the ultimate good, the ultimate high, the highest thing we're reaching towards is the nicest car, the nicest house, the nicest computer, the nicest monitor, whatever it is. That's what we're trying to reach for. And I've been talking about this kind of concept for years. Just recently, I've sort of been able to put into words, and it's a materialist culture. That's what we live in. That's how we operate. We treat things much better than we treat people. And I think that that's why the credit cards have gotten, our credit card spending has gotten so out of control, because we are so willing to buy these things instead of just spending time with people. You know how much it costs to just get a couple friends together and hang out? Literally just the gas it takes you to get to that person's apartment, house, condo, whatever it is. That's all it costs. And you can just play like video games, or you play a board game, that's free. My wife and I, we have friends over, we play a board game. It's so much fun. You know, we don't have to spend money on this or this or this. We might make some food, but it's like, I'm going to make food anyway, so I just make it for a couple extra people. They bring food over. And I think that, you know, we focused so much on stuff and things and experiences and this and this and this. And it's like credit card. I think a lot of this is we were locked in our homes in 2020. So the credit card spending has gotten out of control and exploded because we weren't spending money, we weren't doing anything. I think experiences, there is a value there, but we have to be very careful with how much money we're spending on this stuff, because like at the end of the day, I want people to be able to live in the moment to a point, but you're living for tomorrow as well. If you only lived for today, you would only ever eat the most unhealthy thing that you could possibly get. That's what you would eat. But you sort of expect to be here tomorrow. So living every day like it's your last day is a flawed way to view the world and a flawed way to live, because it isn't your last day tomorrow, probably. Because if you were to literally live like it's your last day on earth, you would do things so much differently than you actually live now. That's the thing. People say, oh, I'm going to live like it's my last day on earth. Yet they like barely talk to their parents. They don't kiss their loved ones. They don't hang out with their loved ones. They spend all their time scrolling on Twitter and scrolling on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and everything. And they go, I'm living like it's, you know, my last day on earth, blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, you're not. You're just not doing that. So you argue with me saying, well, you should live for tomorrow and save money for tomorrow. Think about your future and you go, well, I want to be able to live in the moment. Let me rip through TikTok for 5 hours, because that's what I would do on my very last day on earth. So I think that stuff is just pathetic. It's the way people view the world is just wrong. It's materialist worldview, and we need to get away from that. Basically, like, this started back when I think basically once the apple fell on Newton's head, once science became separated from, it's weird. It's like it became separated from the church. And I think that might not have been the worst thing, because we need to be able to figure out the way things work outside of God. But obviously, being a Christian, I believe things were designed by God. So it's like it'll come back to God. In my opinion, science will always point back to God. And that's what I believe. And that's sort of what I've seen has happened. But it's like once the apple fell on Newton's head, we sort of have been becoming more and more materialist as the days go by. So this is more than a credit card problem. This is a much deeper societal rot issue, but it's not going to be solved by some idiot with no hair on a podcast. The next thing is also inflation. Everything's so expensive now. I saw like the presidential debates were this last week, and that's the thing that Trump was hitting Biden on the hardest, was the border and inflation. It was crazy. And you know, as just a normal dude that makes a normal amount of money, that lives in a pretty normal area, groceries are so expensive now. Like, they tell us inflation is like 10, 15, 20%. Dude, it's not. It's like groceries, I swear we spend twice as much as we used to. I can't say for sure. I can't back it up with any stats or figures. I just know that milk used to be like $2 a gallon, and now it's like $5. So, and eggs used to be like $1 or $2 a dozen, and now they're like $5. So what happened? What happened to all this, like this like, I don't know. They tell us inflation is this, and I don't think it's this. I think it's like way more than whatever they're telling us that it is. So I think inflation has a lot to do with this. People are just having a tougher time maybe adjusting to this, because the inflation has been so rampant and so rapid over the last just few years that their lifestyle hasn't really been able to adjust, because they live their lives normally, but that just got so expensive to live their lives the way that they were living their lives, that they need to now take a step back and just reassess. The next thing is, I think people are just unwilling to sacrifice. We live in a culture of now. I think a perfect example is Amazon. We live in a culture of Amazon, 2-day delivery, next day delivery, same day delivery. That's the culture we live in. We live in an era of now. If I can buy this thing today, brand new, I could buy this MacBook Pro I could buy like this MacBook Pro that I have right in front of me. I could buy this for I could buy it used for $1,000 on Facebook Marketplace, but it's going to take me maybe a week to find somebody, and then I have to actually have the cash for it. I can't just borrow the money for it. Then, that's a little bit more work. You have to go meet the guy, whatever. But if I just go to Apple.com or I go to Apple Store and they give me a credit card that I sign up for, and then I get a new laptop, then I could spend $2,700, get a slightly newer one, maybe a little bit better. And I think that's how people view the world. They want the nicest thing now, which can be a good thing in some ways. Like, it's pushed us in certain ways, but for like the average Joe, like, we need to just, we need to be saving our money wherever we can. Buy used, buy cheap, buy secondhand. That's like the best way to save money, and stop buying with credit cards. That's, I think, one of the best ways to not use credit cards, especially to not buy like clothes and all this stupid crap that you have. Like, you have too many clothes, dude. Like, you throw out some of your clothes. One of the best ways to not buy all that stuff is to buy it with cash, or buy it used and buy it locally. This laptop, I've talked about it before, but I bought it for $1,200 almost a year ago to the day. And it's a 2021 MacBook Pro. Like, it's a great laptop. And, I could have bought the newest one and ordered it and had $3,000, whatever it is. But, like, why? I could just find one on Facebook Marketplace, meet them within a couple days. I have the cash. I could buy it. So it's a different way to view the world. And it's a better way to view the world, because you're buying things you don't need to impress people that, don't really even like you, that you don't even like. So you're just trying to impress them. Next, I know a lot of people claim points. I don't like that. I disagree. I just think that people use that as an excuse to spend more money than they have or than they normally would, because it's okay, because I'm getting 3%, 2%, 1% cash back. I think that if you are so diligent and you are just the type of person who will never spend another extra penny on it, that's fine. Like, if you're going to use a debit card, I'm just going to use a credit card instead. I think that's fine. But you got to be on it. You got to be on it like you wouldn't believe. Like, you got to be on, what's that phrase? On it like white on rice. You got to be on it. Like, if you mess up once, you got to stop doing it, because I think it can get really quickly out of hand. And yeah, it is kind of nice. The cash back can be nice, but I think a lot of people will spend a little extra money because they don't have to pay it off right away, and they don't technically have the cash, so they'll pay it off next month or the month after or whatever. They'll just eat the fee, kind of. So be careful about that. And I think finally, the last thing is that a lot of these are buy now, pay later, BNPL. I've talked about this on the podcast a lot, about Affirm and how much I hate it, and all those websites. And I think a lot of these credit cards, they give you 12 months, 0% interest financing. So you think, well, I have 12 months to pay it off, I might as well spend blah, 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 blah. I think what happens there is you spend more money than you normally would. Especially if you buy it new. Like, if it's something that you could have just bought used, like a refrigerator or a washer, dryer, like that type of stuff that we've purchased used. If you're not gonna buy it, if you're gonna buy it new, you're spending more money than you would used. So you're already spending more money than you normally would have, which brings me back to my last point. Is like, you're spending more money. You think you're using it just for the points, but really you're actually just spending more money, so it sort of makes itself up. So if you're getting the 0% interest financing, I think a lot of people will just spend more money than they normally would have, because, well, I have 12 months to pay it off. But I also just think that, like, when you have the 12 months to pay it off, you can't conceptualize what it's going to be like in 12 months. Like, why don't you have the money now? How come over the last 12 months you didn't save the money to get to this point? And it's like, oh, well, I have 12 months to figure it out. Well, okay, yeah, but like, you have to figure it out. Like, you have to have it figured out. So be very careful with these buy now, pay later schemes. I have a chart here, which I thought was pretty interesting, kind of sad, something that just really bugs the crap out of me, this type of stuff. Basically, this is a chart I pulled from the Federal Reserve, and it's talking about the buy now, pay later effect. And what you could see here is that it affects women much more than it affects men. The further right the things are, the more it affects that person. The more people it affects, I should say, the higher percentage. It also seems to affect basically whatever your age is. It seems to affect you pretty evenly. A lot of people under 40 and a lot of people over 60 will use it, which I think is interesting. Education, if you are high school educated with a high school degree, it'll affect you the most. Some college will affect you a little bit less, and then if you have a full college degree, it'll affect you the least, which I think is funny because people who go to college are stupid enough to pull like $100,000 in loans. I think a lot of that is just, I literally can't do these buy now, pay later, because if I do, I'm going to lose everything because I'm paying for college still. And then you could see who it affects the most. Under $30,000 of household income, 30 to 50, 50 to 75, that's who it affects the most. 75 to 150 and 150 and above, those people are just stupid. If you are in that bracket and you are using buy now, pay later or credit cards for anything other than diligently getting the points, you're an idiot. The home ownership was relatively interesting. People who own homes versus rent homes, there's a bigger gap if you're renting. I think that's probably, I'm assuming they're probably making a little bit less money. but then they buy now, pay later, and then they spend more than they normally would have. So they're like repeating this cycle, and then below 620 credit score, of course, and people who got rejected, and people who were 30 plus day delinquency in the past year. This affects the downtrodden, the people who are doing the worst financially in our society, and it's a cycle, a never-ending cycle. If you take everything that you hear in this podcast episode, buying more stuff than you need, unwilling to sacrifice to just buy something cheaper or not buy it at all, just getting the 0% interest rate and then spending more than you normally would have been able to because you can't afford it now, even with cash. It's a cycle, because then you're going to have to afford it. So then the next time you have to buy something big, you have just finished paying off the last thing. So you're going to do the same cycle over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's going to keep you in the cycle of poverty that is so frustrating, because it's just these companies are taking advantage of you. So stop letting them take advantage of you. Like, this stuff bugs the crap out of me. I will say this till the cows come home. Please, just think really hard about your purchases. Be more aggressive and be more diligent with what you're buying. Just sacrifice a little bit more. And I promise you, as you start to make more money, as you start to grow in your career, as you start to sacrifice more, you will realize that all that stuff means nothing. And it's just about the people that you spend it with, like the time that you spend it with. Like, you could take away everything from me. All my house, my cars, my $3,000-$4,000 minivan that I really love, my laptop, my camera, whatever. You could take everything from me. But as long as I have my kids and my wife, I'm fine. Like, I'll be good. I'll be okay. Next, I want to talk about balancing ambition with having a family. As you know, I just mentioned, I have 2 girls and a wonderful wife, the best wife ever. She also edits these podcasts, so if I don't say that, she knows where I sleep, so think about that. I think I'm a very busy guy. Like, I have a 9-to-5 job. I'm a very diligent working out. I have this channel that I post videos on every single week. And then I have my main Scott Schroeder channel, which I also do weekly videos on. So I keep myself extremely busy. And so, how do I do it? I'm Superman. That's how I do it. But there are actually some functional things that I do. The first one is keeping a schedule. I'm not the best at this, but I am pretty good at managing my time where I don't waste time. So what I mean by that is, if I'm hanging out with my family or I'm hanging out with friends or whatever it is, I'm not there just playing on my phone. So that way next time I'm with them or when I'm away from them, I feel like I haven't seen them. I'm just there. I'm in the moment. So with my kids, my wife and I have a rule that if we are playing with our kids, the phones have to be out of reach for everybody. So for us, that typically means if we're in the basement, the phones are just upstairs. And if we're upstairs, the phones are just tucked away in a drawer or on a counter that we're nowhere near, and we're just playing 20 feet away from them. So that's a functional thing. It's just, when you're doing things, do the thing. So when I come down here to edit a podcast or film a podcast or edit a video or film a video, whatever it is, just make sure that's what you're doing. Don't get sidetracked and scroll TikTok or scroll on Instagram. And same thing with the gym. If you're going to the gym, go to the gym, do your workouts. Each gym workout should take you a certain amount of time. You should sort of figure out how long a gym session should take you. I heard something interesting today about supersetting, and how supersetting doesn't hurt your growth. So if you don't have enough time, or you feel like you don't have enough time, and you're doing back and chest one day, you can superset back and chest workouts together, and it won't impact your. You'll still be able to grow muscle the same that you would have if you didn't superset, which I think is interesting. So just something to think about if you're trying to save some time. Next, obviously, I have an amazing wife, and I'm not just saying that. I do lean on my wife for a lot of stuff. She is she helps me through a lot of things. She edits this podcast. She's always there for me. She's always supporting me, and having that rock to always lean back on and fall back on is really, really important. I think that any great man needs a great woman, and any great woman needs a great man. You can do it alone. It's a lot easier to not do it alone. I had tried to do it alone when I was younger, and I promise you it's better to do it with a wife. And also having kids, it's a good motivator. It's well, this is real now. Their lives, my decisions now really deeply impact somebody else's life, and I want my decisions to positively impact their life. I don't want to just scroll and watch TV and not do meaningless and mindless things and not hang out with them. If I'm not hanging out with them, I want to work. I want to be doing something. I want to be moving forward. I want to be trying to achieve more. Next, you're probably just going to sacrifice a little bit on sleep. The last time I got 8 hours of sleep was the last time I had hair. It's just not going to happen. I'm sorry. You're just probably not going to get 8 hours of sleep very much anymore. That's just the reality of it. I think you could probably be better than me about sleep. I know sometimes I'll get caught up late at night, and then I have to get up early or whatever. Thankfully, I work from home, so I can sort of catch up. If I get on at 8:30, I can get up at 8:15 if I had a long night just editing or whatever it is. just take advantage of that free time you have, because sometimes it'll slip through your fingers, because that's where you can find some hours of sleep. I think, at least for me, that's where I've been able to find hours of sleep. It's just by being really diligent with everything. Next is try to do stuff while they sleep. So my kids take naps, pretty diligent about the nap times, and they go to bed every night at 8, 8:15, 8:30. Never later than 8:30. So right now it's 9:05. So I'm filming this podcast after they're asleep, and that's a great time to get stuff done. Again, you have to be up early enough. My kids get up around 8-ish, 7:38. You have to be up early enough to be up with them or be up before them, so that way you can work out. In my case, I'll work out before them, before they get up. But it's like you have to try to figure out when they sleep and then try to stuff a lot of your activities into those moments. But like right now, I can stay up to midnight. That's 4 hours, 3.5 hours of just pure work, or if I'm hanging out with my wife, pure hanging out with my wife. And I think the biggest thing is just like, don't waste time. Just don't waste time anywhere in your day. It's so easy to lose an hour on your phone that's designed to do that to you. And if that ever happens to you, feel guilty about it. That's how I feel. And I think it's good. I think it's a good motivator. If you ever, you get caught watching something on YouTube for 20 minutes longer than you should have, or whatever it is, then just feel a little guilty. I mean, I think feeling guilty is good. Like, people say don't feel guilty about this or that. No, guilt's a great motivator, because guilt sort of pushes you in the direction that you should be going. If you did this and you feel guilty, don't do this anymore because that made you feel guilty. Do this over here instead. This pertains to whatever. Time management. My big fight against porn, if it pertains to that, like if you watch porn, it makes you feel gross and you feel like disgusting, which I think it makes everybody feel, then don't do that anymore. Feel guilty. Guilt is good. Guilt is a good thing. For lack of a better term, guilt is good. Although I'm a Catholic, so maybe that's just that Catholic guilt pumping through my veins. All right, next. Speaking of spending time and ruining families, Dr. Disrespect came out with, if you don't know who he is, he's a YouTuber who plays video games for a living, and he was caught texting or messaging something like that on Twitch, an underage girl back in 2017, which is why his Twitch contract was broken off. This was like a big news. I've never watched him. Maybe I've watched him like once. I think I've watched some highlights of him. I don't think I've ever watched him live, but I think I have seen some highlights of him. He seems really funny. Like, I get why he got so famous and so popular. But he's a scumbag. A lot of people are. Like, we are all fallen people, so it's not on me to judge how much of a scumbag he is. That's for the big men upstairs. That's not for me to pass judgment, because Jesus says that, like, when he's talking to the crowd who wants to stone, I believe it's the prostitute to death, and he says, he who hasn't sinned cast the first stone, and nobody throws a stone because we're all sinners. So I'm not judging him. I do want to talk about this though, because I think it's an interesting thing to just remember. These people on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, these people that maybe you might look up to, that you might admire, they're men, and they're human men in the sense that they're not only men. They could be women too, but they're man. Like, we're all just man. Every single person. Human. That's what I mean. We're just human. Make sure that you are watching these people and you're not admiring these people. Don't idolater them. Don't make idols out of these people, because they're not people to be looked up to. Especially, anybody, me included, especially me. I have a worldview that I'm trying to impart on you that I know is right, because I live it, and I am an example for my ideas, and that's why I know my ideas are good. And that's why you will know my ideas are good. When I do this long enough, you will know that I will be able to get them all out, and you will know that my ideas are good, and that my ideas are right, and that they're working, and that I can prove to you that they work. That's one of the things with this motivational type podcast, where I talk about a lot of things. If this podcast doesn't work and I give up on it and I quit, then the ideas that I was putting across in this podcast don't work, and they failed. And so then my ideas were bad. So follow people whose ideas are good, and don't they're not idols. I guess the only idol would be Jesus. So don't make idols out of these strange people. The Dr. Disrespect, he's just a guy. I think actually that's his name, a guy. So he's just a guy, literally and figuratively. And don't look up to them. Don't make idols out of them. They're just people. They play video games. They just make videos. They might just be good at making videos. That doesn't mean you need to take their opinions seriously. And even if you have good ideas, at least my ideas I believe are good, just take them as they are, and then take those ideas and then do your own thinking about them and turn that into your own worldview. And that's how you should live. Don't look up to these people, because we're all rotten scumbags, and it's a good reminder of it. It's also a good reminder why you don't give in to your base desires. Obviously, what he's doing is far beyond what I think most people's base desires are. I mean, this is like crazy stuff. I think he was 20 years older than the girl, but at the time or something like that, almost 20 years older than the girl. But it's like, that's why you don't give in to your base desires. I talk about this all the time on the podcast, is learn to sacrifice, stop giving in to your base desires, because they can control you in a way where you will look back and you won't even know who you are. This is 7 years ago too. Like, that's the thing too. This happened in 2017. I mean, we are all offered forgiveness from the Jesus dying on the cross for us. But that doesn't mean that like what he did wasn't wrong. So it's just, people can change, but stop giving into your base desires. You're so much better than that. You literally actually are. You actually are designed and you were made to be better than that. There's a version of you that could exist that's so much better than the version of you that exists now. And you just have to become and live into that version. You just have to figure out who that version is. And the last thing is power corrupts. There's that line from Batman or The Dark Knight where you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain, which is why my dream with any of this stuff, if any of this stuff were to ever pop off and I was making a bunch of money off of it, once I had enough money to just disappear and make enough money off the 10% or 7% that I would make every year on my investments, I'm gone. I'm ghost. You'll never hear from me again. You might see like a sighting like the Yeti or the Loch Ness monster. You might like see me like that, but I'm out of here. No, I think that you have to. I think that quote is a little cliche, but it's very much true. I think I've found that typically most people, you end up letting you down. And so you have to, like, I might, like, my ideas, you might not like them, and I might let you down one day, but hopefully I die a hero and I just leave. Not die, I don't want to be dead, but I just want to just give it all up because I like making videos and I like doing this. I do like doing this, but I think I'd have an easy time stopping because I have a lot of other things I'd like to do. Maybe not, maybe I'm just lying. So just, that's my opinion on Dr. Disrespect situation. Is we're just men, and don't follow these people. Don't trust them with all your heart. We're all flawed creatures, and stop giving to your base desires. Next is getting wealthy is not that hard, but you need to sacrifice. First, I want to preface this by saying, yes, I do have a course available. It's only $1,997. I'll give it to you for $1,699 if you use my code Scott, because you're watching this podcast. No, so I really believe my wife and I have found success. I don't want to talk about how much we're worth because I think it's a little tacky and cliche, but we've done very well for ourselves. We've made a decent amount of money, but not like crazy money. I mean, we live in Ohio, so we live in a cheap area. We have jobs. We're not getting paid like California tech jobs money, but we make decent money. We're just very good with our money. And I want to tell you how we've done so well. We've done well, and I think that what we've done can be repeated. And I just want to show people what we've done because we've been able to. I mean, our net worth is in the hundreds of thousands. I'm not going to put a number on it, but we've done very well. We're 29 years old, and we've pretty much done everything right. And I just want to show you that you can do things right. Everybody's got the quick ways to do it. Take out this loan, take out that loan, whatever. Do it that way if you want. I'm just going to show you my more conservative way because that's just how I am with money. The first thing is live beneath your means. Obviously, we talked about that a little bit earlier in the podcast, which is why I wanted to bring this entire topic up. Start with a budget and then learn to live beneath that. A budget is one of the most crucial things, probably the most important wealth building tool that you could ever possibly implement. It's really, that's what I'm saying. It's not that hard. None of this stuff is hard. Just budget. See how much everything costs. See how much car costs for the entire year, then divide it by 12 months. And that's your monthly cost of that, monthly recurring cost of that. That's how we do it, especially like with clothes and fitness and stuff like that. Is we have, you got to buy new shoes. You got to buy new running shoes because you run. So figure how much that costs in a year. We have it at, I think $400 is all of our clothes and fitness budget is what we call it. And we just divide it by $12 or 12 months. So we have I think it's $33 or something like that per month that we get added into this pot that we can then use when we have enough money to buy the thing that we need, so on and so forth. So you start with a budget and then learn to live beneath that. So your budget is X amount of dollars and then try to live for X amount of dollars minus 1,000 or minus 500 or minus 400, minus 200, whatever it is, just minus a little bit. Because we're going to take that extra money that we're living beneath our means with, and we are going to start to pay off debt, which is a lot easier if you are living beneath your means and you are not living paycheck to paycheck. Paying off debt is, I think, a very important tool. I know a lot of people are very pro debt, and I'm not going to argue with you, but paying off debt has really helped my wife and I. Our net worth really exploded the day that we didn't have a car payment anymore or a student loan payment or anything. We were able to invest significantly more money. I think we were paying off the car in these $1,000 chunks. The payment was only $300 or $400 a month or something, but I was doing $1,000 a month because I wanted to pay it off quicker. And then we just did a lump sum payment one day, and then the $1,000 was just able to get invested. Same thing with the student loans. It was like $300 a month, and then that $300 was able to get invested. So that's 1,300 extra bucks just getting invested, growing, doubling. So every 7 years, theoretically, the amount that you put in should double. So that's how I always look at it, is in 49 years it doubles 7 times. So the numbers can get really crazy really fast. So that's the second thing. The next thing is to figure out what you want in your life. Now that you have no debt and you're starting to invest money, you need to figure out what your life is. What do you want in life? Do you want to continue your job for the next 40 years? Does your job really bring you a lot of fulfillment? Do you want to not work another day in your life? What do you want? And then start to plan your life around that. So you have to figure out what your biggest expenses are. My wife and I have talked about this a lot. Like, we go back and forth. Sometimes we want to sell our house and move on to just land and then build a little tiny home, and then she doesn't have to work and we have all this extra money and blah, 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 blah. So we've talked about a lot of this stuff, but you have to analyze what your largest expenses are. If you wanted to do something like where you don't want to work another day in your life, you have to analyze what your largest expenses are and then figure out a way to get rid of them. So for most people, the largest expense is always going to be their home. And so you have to figure out a way to get rid of that. Is it just paying it off? That's a great way to do it. Is it moving into something a lot cheaper? Is it moving into a van? Whatever it is, you just have to figure out a way to do it. Next, stop buying dumbass things. This should probably go up a little bit higher on the list, but just please stop buying stupid stuff to impress people. Stop buying dumb cars and dumb this. I mean, the money that people will spend on cars that they just don't need it blows my mind, because it's like, just invest that money instead. If you invest that money, you spent $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 in a stupid car. You have this payment that's $600 a month. It's stupid. Just invest that money instead. Don't buy that stupid thing. Stop buying stupid things. It's not that hard to not buy stupid things. That's the thing. I've never bought stupid things. Like, just don't do it. Just look at the car and go, look at the thing you're about to buy and be like, would Scott think this is stupid? And the answer is probably yes. So just don't buy it, because it's stupid and it's junk and it's plastic and you're throw it out anyways. Don't buy it. Stop buying stupid things. Next is invest in stocks that follow the market. Now, I need to preface this. This is not financial advice. I don't know anything about anything, but these are some of the stocks that I personally invest in. Stocks that follow the market, such as FSKAX, which is Fidelity's like money market. They buy a bunch of shares. It's a mutual fund. They buy a bunch of shares of the top performing companies, and then so your portfolio will follow the market. So FSKAX or QQQ. There are also a million other ones. Again, this is not financial advice. Do not buy these stocks. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it is just, those are the ones that I use, and I have found some success with them. You need to do your own research though, but those are just examples of stocks that follow the market. They're mutual funds that just follow the market. You can see their portfolio of what shares of what company they own. And so those are examples. Those are the ones that I actually own. We also do a little bit of investing into dividends. I don't know the name of that one, but we do some dividend investing stocks, because those are going to be a lot less growth. It's only about 10% of our portfolio. But the reason we do that, just because if the market were to dip, and we're not like, we're young, so I'm willing to risk a market that might be a little bit more volatile. But it's nice to have a little bit more of a safety net, and having 10% in something or 15% in something that will pay dividends. That's not going to go up a ton, but it's not going to go down a ton. You're just going to make consistent revenue basically every single month. So that's another mutual fund, that's a dividend mutual fund. All right. The next thing is never touch that money. If you put money into an investment account, that money can never be touched. That money is not meant to be used for anything other than you living on a yacht in 30 years when the money is doubled enough times. Please just don't touch the money. I know you can look at your portfolio and you could see, oh, it's up this much money or it's up that much money, or maybe I could do some type of, let me do like a short call or some type of options. Don't do that. Stop. Don't leverage. Don't do anything stupid. Just buy the stock and hold on to it and check it once a month. Do your net worth calculation, and then you're good. Next is do a net worth calculation. This has been one of the most fun things for my wife and I to do ever since we have no debt. It's so cool. I mean, we still have home debt, but we have no like other debt than that. It's so cool to see the value of everything just go up and up and up and up, except for the cars. Those go down and down and down, which you would not be too surprised by. But we do a net worth, basically all of our investment accounts, what our home's worth. I do what our cars are worth, because I like to see just how much it's going down, and you just add that all up, and that's how much you're worth. And that number can be really big or really small depending on how well you've done, but it's really cool to see how much money you've been able to accumulate, basically. And I think that's been something that my wife and I, we can look at that and go, oh, what we're doing is right. Sometimes it might suck not doing this or not doing that or not buying this or not buying that because everybody else is doing it, everybody else is doing that. And then you see the numbers and go, okay, well, actually what we're doing is right. Everything we're doing sort of working out in a really positive way. So I'm a big fan of doing a net worth calculation. Next is donate your money quietly. Never let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Donating money is a very, very wonderful thing that I've never done once in my life, but I would suggest you do it because, and don't tell anybody about it. Don't mention it to anybody you ever meet, but donate money. And because you will get to a point where $20,000 doesn't mean that much to you, but $20,000 could mean everything to a charity, or could mean everything to a family of 4 or 10 families of 4 that need the money. So donate quietly. Don't let anybody know about it. Not that I've ever donated, but I think that that's a good thing to do. And finally, it's a weird thing to talk about because I kind of almost don't want to bring it up, but I have to. So just donate money. It's good. It's the right thing to do. And it is. And then finally, realize that money doesn't matter, but the people that you spend time with along the way. I've mentioned this before, but you take away everything that I have. And as long as I have my team, which is what I call them, my wife and my 2 kids, I'll be fine. The sun will come up tomorrow and I'm not too worried about it. So just at the end of the day, money matters to a point. I do know it matters. Getting good at it and getting wealthy is not that hard. Just learn to sacrifice, put your head down and work. You're at your job, just get better at your job, get a new job that pays more, and just continually advance in your career, putting money away, living beneath your means. You'll be fine. It's really not that hard. All right. Next is the comment section. We have no comments today. Wah, wah. It's fine. My last 3 videos that I posted on the channel had 0 views. So who's even watching this? Next is the quote of the day. And today's quote is, I forgot to attribute this quote. I'll try to figure it out. The quote is, running doesn't get easier, you just get faster. And I thought this was a perfect quote for life. I knew this quote. I didn't have to look it up, actually, because I know who it's from. Or I don't know who it's from, but I know that it is a great quote. It's from Greg LeMond. And I think that this quote really pertains to life in so many ways. Life seems like a race. It's a marathon. It really is. It's not a sprint. And so much at life is you slowly just getting better and better at things, but it feeling like it's as difficult as it's always been. But then you'll look back one day and you go, I used to run 10-minute miles, and now I run 6-minute miles. I guess it has gotten a little bit easier, but you do just get faster. Like, you still feel the pains and just everything. And the good thing is you're always making progress. You're always improving. But life, in running, I was a runner. I'm getting back into it now, and running is hard, and it doesn't get any easier. You just get faster. You just go further and you just get faster. It gets easier to a point, but I like the quote a lot. I think it has a lot to do and pertain to with life. So just always know that the difficulties in life will always be there, but it should trend upwards, and obviously put your faith in Christ. Next is the unsolicited advice section. My unsolicited advice is that processed foods are killing you. Stop eating them, because eating them is a form of suicide. Obviously, I'm very anti taking your own life. That's not a big surprise. We look at taking one's life in a way that's we only look at it in one way, the most graphic, the way they depict on TV. But it's not that way. Eating processed foods, it will kill you. It will kill you a lot younger than you were expecting it to kill you too. So stop eating them. I mean, they are so bad for you. And I know it's hard. I know it's very hard, and it can be a lot more expensive to not eat processed foods. It doesn't have to be more expensive. You have to get really good at finding deals and stuff, but on average, it will be more expensive. This is the type of thing, though, that I would stop investing a little bit of extra money for, because eating these processed foods day in and day out, the Doritos, the Cheetos, the drinks, the stuff from McDonald's, everything. These processed foods are just so bad for you. There are so many studies. I talked about this in the seed oils episode. I can link that. It's a couple episodes ago. I talked about seed oils and just how bad they are for you. And they're just like a byproduct of basically making t-shirts, more or less. It's a byproduct of manufacturing. They used to use it to grease equipment, and now we put it in our bodies, and our bodies can't break them down. And there's seed oils in everything. These processed foods, I mean, they're processed foods because if you look at the back of the container, it's not the food they say it is. You look at a potato chip and you think, this is just some guy in a factory cutting these potatoes down pretty thin, putting them in like a vat of grease, boiling them up, taking them out, and then that's my chip, maybe putting a little salt on them. No, Not even close. For Doritos, what they do is they like break down these potatoes to a molecular level, and they sort of form them into a chip, and then they put a bunch of chemicals you never heard of, phosphylipate, red 40, all of these things. They put them all over this stuff, and then it's like, yeah, here's food for you. It's kind of food. It's got calories. It's like, so does gasoline. I'm sure gasoline has calories, but that doesn't mean I would drink it. Processed foods is a slower way to die. So stop eating them. I mean, they're so bad for you. So many people are dying many, many years younger than they should be dying because we are a culture that treats the disease. We treat the illness, but not the disease. No, we treat it's not that. It's we treat the symptoms, but not the disease. We treat, oh, you have a headache because you don't drink enough water, take some Tylenol. Or why don't you just drink more water? Like, you have a headache all the time. Why don't you drink more water? Oh, you're overweight, and because of that, you're having all these other problems. Well, here's some pills to fix those problems. Why don't you just lose the weight? Like, your life would be better if you lost the weight instead of just trying to cure the byproduct of your disease, of being overweight, of being unhealthy, of eating all this crap. So stop eating processed foods. I promise you, I haven't been eating processed foods for a while now. Occasionally, obviously, it's going to happen here and there. You'll eat something somewhere from something. But for the most part, I'm pretty good about it, and I feel so much better all the time, just on a daily basis. You know, you just feel like a 7 now as opposed to a 5, or a 6 now as opposed to a 5. It's not every day I'm not jumping out of bed thinking, oh man, this is so great. But it's like you just feel a little bit better every single day, and it's so much better for you. So stop eating processed foods. It's killing you. Thank you for listening or watching. This has been Scott with the Dear Young Men podcast, episode 11. I will see you in episode 12 next week. Peace.